Okay, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to part 2 of the art of feedback. One of the most important things for us to hone as a skill if we are a leader in terms of handling teams and managing a leadership role, or if we intend to act like a leader and have the attitude to lead our lives in the best way that we can. I see a lot of us here in the room, and I recognize you all as leaders in your space already. And it's a sign of leadership to be hungry to learn more and show up each time there is an opportunity to learn. So, welcome to this session. Welcome, Deepak, Rohan, Nikhil, Tasneem, and everybody else in the room. I don't know how many of you were there in the first session. If you were, just give me a thumbs up. If you've attended part 1 of the art of feedback. Okay, if not, then for the sake of those who've made time today, I will spend some time on going through what we covered the last time, because that was very relevant for us to understand the power of feedback. But before we go there, allow me to spend a minute extending an invitation to you all for our online leadership courses. I'm going to play a very short video which explains the courses that we have online, and I would love you to sign up for it and become a Silhouette leader. There are a few in the room who are already Silhouette leaders, but for those who've yet to come on our side of leadership, here is a very short video for you. Allow me a minute while I play that on. Minute while I play that on. Minute while I play that on. Can you hear me? Guys, if you could please confirm if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Great. I think bandwidth is a bit of an issue. It's taking a while. Thank you for your patience. It should be up in any minute. Minute while I play that on.
Just some time back, I was correcting people's handshake and body language to help them to be effective communicators. And here we are practicing social distancing. New normal is not just a hashtag, but a harsh reality that we can overcome only if we have a conscious learning plan to upskill ourselves. But then you might ask, what should I upskill myself on? My name is Yukti, and as a qualified leadership and etiquette coach, let me answer that question for you. Whether you are someone who's just lost a job or not doing well in business.
Oops. I think we lost the video again.
Or someone who's been able to hold the position tight, or maybe someone in between somewhere. One thing that is common for all of us to do is to relearn how we lead ourselves and our teams in these tough times. This video is an invitation for you to register for a leadership course that will help you to learn 5 things. 1. How to make the best decisions in your personal and professional life. 2. How to think out of the box and stay relevant in the times to come. 3. How to create a balance between your logical thinking and your emotions. 4. How to collaborate with others and partner with them to achieve more success. And 5. How to be effective with your communication in the virtual online space. ULB is a 2-week program that helps you to go deep into 4 most critical areas of leadership: creativity, critical thinking, collaboration, and communication. This course comes with masterclasses, exclusive interview with experts, a lot of reading material for you to go deeper into, self-reflection through writing assignments, and most importantly, a direct access to me every week through the live leadership webinars that I conduct only for our participants. The moment you register for this course, you also become a member of elite group of leaders, our participants, and we call ourselves Silhouette Circle of Leadership. As a part of this circle, you will be a part of our reading clubs, and we will continue to grow together and learn from each other, not just till your course continues, but for your lifetime. The content of this course also stays with you, so you can go back to it and reflect on some new learnings that you may want to collect. So I wait to welcome you on this side and hope that you start this journey real soon to prepare yourself to succeed in post-COVID times. Click on the button below, register for this course, and be a part of our community today.
So welcome to SBY Academy's leadership webinar. Yet another insight into leadership is what we intend to offer to you all. And through this video also would like to invite you to sign up for our online leadership courses. There is another course called Upskilling Leadership Program that we have recently launched, which is nothing but a combination of ULB that you just heard about and ULC, which is an Upskilling Leadership Challenge Level 2 course. So we've put that together as a 45 days course for you. And I have exciting discount to offer today in this webinar at the end of the webinar. So we make sure that we don't waste any time and get on board. With that, let us get started with our understanding, deepening our understanding on feedback. The only way for us to grow in life is if we are able to move away from window gazing and build the courage to do mirror holding. So window gazing is when we are looking at the world outside and figuring out why people can't see what we can about them and waiting for them to do something about themselves. Whereas mirror holding is when we have the courage to reflect upon our own self and know that the only way in which we will grow is if we are able to grow our own self in every possible manner. Feedback is done with the intent to grow ourselves. If it is done with any other intent, then it is not going to add any value, and that is why we see feedback falling flat. What is a normal process in which people collect feedback? Let's just imagine if you can just go back in time and recollect whenever you asked for feedback the last time, you will realize that you pretty much identify people who should give you the feedback. You shortlist them. If you're in a company, HR will do that for you, and then people are encouraged to share your strengths and weaknesses with you. That is formulated into a report that probably HR will put together. If not, and you're doing this as an individual, you would want to put all that feedback together and look at it as a holistic report that you can assess. Once you go through that, there are 3 thoughts that come to your mind. The first is, which part of this feedback do I accept? And I know that this is something I need to work upon. It's been on my mind for a long time. Or I know these are my strengths and people have validated that. The second part is the one that we question. Like, where is this coming from? Like, I didn't expect this one. Like, what kind of a feedback is this? This is new. And then the third one is what we outrightly reject. This is not me. I don't know who they are talking about, but this is not me. And this feedback is not going to add any value, so I just outrightly reject that. Now, one possibility when we are rejecting a feedback is also that we are in a state of denial, right? We don't want to see a part of us that is becoming more and more obvious to the world outside. Having said that, even with all that we accept about the feedback you receive, what do we do with it? What after this exhaustive exercise? What after people have taken the time out and given the feedback to you? What do we do with it later? What do we do with this report? How often do we go back to this report? How do we use this report to create an action plan? That will be the focus of our discussion today. But before I share my mind map and take you through part 1, because a lot of you in the room were not there for the first session, and I want to quickly take you through all that we've covered on feedback already, I would love to know from you a little bit about yourself, starting with how are you learning right now. So you will see a poll question in front of you. There are 2 questions. If you could please answer this for me. Do you have a conscious learning plan to develop your leadership skills? Is that a yes or a no? And by conscious learning plan, I do not mean YouTube videos or attending some webinars once in a while when you get time, or reading a book once in 6 months. I am talking about a structured, conscious plan that you have committed to. Better still, you have invested in. You've invested your time, money, and effort in this plan. If you have a structured plan such as this, then it's a yes, otherwise it's a no. You could be learning out of curiosity, but that's not a structured, conscious learning plan. That's the first question. And the second is, if you have a coach, do you have a coach in your life? It could be a business coach, it could be a leadership coach, but a coach who can expedite your journey towards success. So I'm going to close this poll now. And here are the results. Well, 36% of us here in the room have a conscious learning plan, and majority, 64%, don't. Thank you so much for your honesty, because it's not easy for us to admit things that don't really make us look nice. But until we accept the way things are, it's very difficult for us to improve them. So thank you for your honest answer there. And the second question, we have about 18% coach. That's fantastic. And 82% of us don't. Maybe at the end of this session, you may want to consider inviting a coach in your life. And at this point, let me spend a minute explaining who a coach really is and who a coach is not, more importantly. So a coach is not someone who's been there, done that in your industry. A coach is not your industry leader. A coach is not 20 years older than you. A coach is someone who has the ability to ask the right set of questions that helps you to get closer to the answers that you're seeking. The questions are yours and the answers are within you. A coach is someone who expedites this process and helps you explore and get those answers from within you, so you spend less time getting to your next milestone. I very strongly recommend having a coach. As a coach myself, I have not one but a few coaches for different purpose and different reasons in life, and trust me, it's because of them that I feel achieving more in a shorter span of time. So if you think time is less and there is a lot more to do in life, go get a coach for yourself. With that, let us dive into our session today. As I open up this mind map, please feel free to design it the way you like. Use colors if you want. Create a mind map of your own on your notebook so that as much of it as possible is retained. All right, so can you see my mind map right now, guys? In the chat box, we've got to warm up the chat box a bit. Can you see it? Just give me a yes in the chat box, please. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, fantastic. I see some comments here about the initial video on the online leadership course. If you couldn't see it, it's all right. I will share the link with you sometime during this session or later in my mail to you. So you can go through it. It's on our website as well, sbyacademy.in. Okay, so let's answer first thing first. How many of us here in the room like to give feedback? You like giving feedback? Give me a yes, like all bold yes, if you like giving feedback. Sometimes it's also a yes when people are not even asking for feedback, but you want to give feedback to people because it's the intent that you have behind it. You want them to grow, you want them to learn faster. So you're all out there for people, trying to give them feedback, helping them improve. Wow, a lot of yeses I see. And now, how many of us don't like to give feedback? I mean, that's one of the not such a favorite question, or one of those awkward moments for me if someone says, what's your feedback on me or the way I perform. If you don't like giving feedback, just say not me. Like, not me. I don't like giving feedback. If I'm asked for it and I don't have a choice, I'll give you feedback. But if I had a choice, I would prefer not to give feedback to people. So how many of us don't like giving feedback? I see only one not me so far. So I'm assuming, and here a few more. But clearly, the majority in the room right now enjoy giving feedback to people. So what we are going to touch upon here very briefly, since we've talked about it at length in the first session, is if there is a better way to give feedback. Now, why we don't like to give feedback is because sometimes we put ourselves in that position and know that it's not such a good place to be in. You know, I don't like being in the spotlight. I don't want to put anybody in the spotlight. And so I don't like giving feedback. That could be one reason. Another reason could be that feedback per se is very confrontational, right? You're confronting somebody when you're giving a feedback. The other person can always come back to you, argue on your point of view, and you don't want that confrontation. You'd rather avoid it, so you don't want to indulge in such a conversation. Or there could be some other reason why we don't like to give feedback. But as much as we grow our comfort in accepting and taking feedback, it helps us to also grow our comfort in giving feedback, which could be one of the ways for us to contribute towards somebody's growth and success. For as long as people are asking for your feedback. So the most important thing that you need to remember about feedback is not to give feedback if it is not asked for. Even if you have great intentions behind it, please hold it back until someone is asking for that feedback, because it's only when you ask for the feedback are you truly open to receiving it. Otherwise, it can fall on deaf ears and it's an absolute waste of effort, and sometimes goes the other way, right? It goes against your favor to give feedback to people. We normally open these conversations by saying, I hope you don't mind if I share a feedback. And what are we expecting the other person to say? More often than not, out of politeness, they'll say, yeah, I mean, bring it on. Tell me now, what is it? Now, what have I done? Now, what feedback is coming my way? Right? And if you're talking to someone with that state of mind, trust me, your feedback is going to do no good. In fact, it might harm your relationship with that person. So let us take one point very clear and take this away from the session already, that we will only give feedback if people ask for it. And we are not operating from a point of arrogance when we say this. It's only to ensure that the other person is open to receiving your feedback. Having said that, is there a right way to give feedback? Yes, there is a right way to give feedback, and there is also a right way to ask for feedback. So what is the right way to give feedback? There are 3 steps that I want you to remember when you're giving feedback from here on. We will never give feedback using any generic statement or words like always or never. You are always late. You never follow the instruction clearly. You are never able to work with the team. You always involve me and my intervention. Right? The moment you say always or never or such extreme words, you are putting off the other person and taking away any effort they would have made to improve themselves or work upon your previous feedbacks. So when we are giving a feedback, we've got to ensure we follow these 3 steps, which I call as SBI, where S stands for situation, giving a specific situation that you are giving your feedback on. So you shared one particular episode that recently happened on which you want to share your feedback. B is the behavior that you're highlighting, which is a point of concern. And I is the impact that this behavior has created, which needs to be looked at, which can probably do more bad than good, and hence you are giving this feedback to the person. Let's take an example. Let us say you are really worried about this one person who always comes in late for all the meetings. Okay, there is this one person who walks in anytime, and we all have this one person in our life, right? No matter what meeting or what group we talk about, there are people who will not respect time no matter how much you preach them about valuing time. You could start the session on time, your meeting on time, yet you will not see much remorse on their face even if they've missed some part of that session. Now, it becomes a concern for you because allowing that person to be a part of that meeting is encouraging a wrong practice. And letting that person go could be very rude or could actually affect your relationship with that person, depending upon how important that person is in the larger scheme of things. So what do? Now, if you are in a position of power or position, you can probably just give a generic statement, which is what we normally land up saying, that you're always late for meetings and it doesn't go well with us. Please make sure you're on time. Right? Which, trust me, has fallen on deaf ears, because this person is operating from a certain habit and a mindset, and this one-line feedback that you've just shared will do no good at all. It's going to create no change, and we see that, and that's why it frustrates us that how many times do I tell this person to come on time and nothing changes. Now, how about doing this a little differently, to say that after the meeting is over, because during the meeting making such a comment anyways will do no good. It'll bring in the energy down for your session. So once the meeting is over, you have a one-on-one with this person to say, in this meeting this morning, we had a very important agenda lined up, which I had shared with you. And because you walked in late, you couldn't add to the agenda that had spelled out in the first 10 minutes of the meeting, which has resulted in lack of clarity or disalignment now between you and me. Later, what you will tell the team might be different from what I had set out as the agenda. So because of this, we will leave the team more confused and take away the clarity that we were trying to establish in the meeting. So you may want to consider coming 5 minutes before the meeting, or we can push this meeting time to 10:10 instead of 10 o'clock if 10:10 works better for you. Now, a conversation such as this might also not be a turning point in someone's life, but it might encourage the person to consider this as a one-off where this person has gone wrong, instead of feeling like you're in a spotlight and being termed as this person who's judged, who's being told that you don't respect time, who's in the spotlight for a wrong reason. So when you are specific about one situation and you're highlighting the behavior that is worrisome with the impact that is creating the concern, it creates a better position for the other person, a better mindset for the other person to accept your feedback. You can add an action point to this feedback later, or you may choose to not give a suggestion at the end of this and let people figure out how they want to deal with the situation better. But following SBI is certainly a better way to give feedback than to give a generic statement. Would you agree? And especially from those who attended this session last week, I would love to know if you've done these three, if you followed these 3 steps, and if it gave you any different experience this time. So let's see in the chat box if you agree that such an approach would be better than a generic approach. If you agree, just say I agree in the chat box. And I agree. I think if I could be more specific instead of being generic, if I could highlight the behavior that is causing the concern, maybe that feedback will be taken better than just giving a random feedback which is generic and sounds judgmental. Yes, so if you agree, just say I agree in the chat box, please. And if you don't and you have a question on this, it's a great time to bounce it off. You can unmute and ask your question. All right, so I see I agree, we all agree. And with that agreement, let us dive into what we can do to ask for feedback in a better way so we get better quality feedback from people. Now here again, we've got to be careful about 3 things. The first thing is, when you are asking for feedback, be very specific about what you're asking for. So don't ask for feedback like, what do you think about me? I don't know, what do you mean by that? Is that you as a friend, you as a parent, you as a wife, a colleague, a boss, a leader, a speaker, or any other role that you're playing in your life, or any other profession that you may have? How specific can your question be will decide the quality of the feedback that you will receive. The second thing to remember is to be open. So when we ask for feedback, we normally follow it up by saying, you know what, I'm very open to feedback. I take feedback really well. So please bring it on. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you truly are as open as you should be. Being open to receiving feedback means consciously dropping any expectations that you have from this conversation. Because when you have expectations, you're only waiting for people to validate what you already know about yourself, right? And if you already know this, then this entire session is futile. this entire effort of asking for a feedback is absolutely futile if you're only asking for a validation or a confirmation of what you already know, including your negatives, your weaknesses. Right? I already know I need to work on my punctuality, and here it comes again. I already know I need to sharpen my communication skills, and here they go again. When we are being open to receiving feedback, we need to stay open with a clean slate in our mind, with no bullet points of our own about what our strengths and weaknesses are. And just stay open to receiving whatever needs to come your way. And the third and the most important thing is to be grateful. Always extend gratitude and make it very obvious and loud and visible to people who have bothered to take their time out to give you a feedback. Giving a feedback is always with the intent to add value to people, unless people are using this as an opportunity to criticize. And we can sniff the difference very easily, right? Can you, I would love to know from people in this room, is it easy for you to sniff the difference between criticism and feedback? When you get a criticism, you know this is criticism, this is not feedback. Just because I'm saying give me a feedback doesn't mean that this is your time to vent out everything you have against me or you're holding against me, right? If that is happening, then maybe I need to sharpen my ability to ask for feedback. I need to be a little more specific about what I'm looking for. Could you give me a feedback on the way I conducted the last webinar? Could you give me a feedback on how interactive the sessions are when I conduct them? Could you give me a feedback on the content and the depth of the content that I shared in my webinars? If I'm giving you this specific question, there is very little room left for you to add criticism to it. Right? Because criticism is usually personal, as Deepak rightly said here. It is personal, but you will get the opportunity to get personal with me if I am leaving the room open, right? If I am defining the question, then you don't have a choice but to stick to that question and give me an answer which will be better quality feedback than it would be if I don't have a specific question to ask. So to some extent, it is within our circle of influence or control to filter criticism from feedback by being more specific about the way we ask for feedback. Does it make sense? If it does, then just say MS in the chat box. MS makes sense, Yukti. This makes sense. I think I can definitely be more specific in the way I'm asking for feedback. So from here on, we are not asking for people's opinion or views. We are asking for feedback, and we know how to do it better. Fantastic. Great. Thanks so much. And now very quickly, let's touch upon how to give feedback to bosses, which is not so easy. It's easy to give feedback to everyone who is, at the same level or position or same power play. But when it comes to bosses who hold higher power because of their position and influence, it's not so easy. It can be a little tricky. So I'm touching upon the hacks that I have to share. I want you to make a quick note of it. And we will concentrate more in this session on how to make all this feedback work. So we discussed this at length in the last session. 3 hacks to give feedback to your boss is to start with consequences and not with complaints. So start with what you are losing because of this habit or behavior of your boss without highlighting that habit or behavior as a complaint from you. Right? So instead of saying, because you hold back approvals or because approvals take a lot of time to come from your table, we are not meeting our deadlines, you're complaining, right? You can change this complaint to say that if there are 10 approvals coming onto your table, maybe you could delegate a few to your one-downs or to me or to people in your core team so that you have less time to spend on this activity and we have only the important ones lined up for your approval. That will help us to meet the timelines faster. So in this manner, you are highlighting the consequences of that delay in their approval instead of creating a complaint about their behavior. The second way is to offer a workaround. In the same example, you saw how we offered a workaround instead of a turnaround that we expect from people. That I have given a feedback today and tomorrow you're supposed to be a different person, right? Because you always say that you're open to feedback. So where is that openness now? How come I don't see this in your action? When we're thinking in this manner, we are expecting a turnaround to happen, like sudden transformation, which doesn't happen to us. So how do we expect that to happen to people around us? So instead of expecting a turnaround, can we offer a workaround? That why don't you delegate 3 out of those 10 or some number of those approvals down to your core team so that you have lesser on your plate, which is already full. The third way is to replace judgments with empathy. Let us remember and appreciate the fact that leaders are not superhumans, and we don't need to put them on a pedestal of perfection. They will make mistakes. They have their own imperfections, just as how you have and I have. And it's absolutely all right. Just because they are senior to us, or they earn more salary, or they have more gray hair than we do, doesn't necessarily mean that they are not allowed to make mistakes or be imperfect. So can we bring in some element of empathy instead of judging them for every slip up that happens from our bosses? So these are the 3 things that I want you to remember. Very quickly, I want a very quick comment, spontaneous comment on the chat box. Which one of these 3 are you going to pick up and apply immediately, like a plug and play? I'm going to pick this up and immediately apply in my space. Now, it need not be your boss. It could be any authority figure that you need to give feedback to, right? Sometimes people around us ask for it, and that's a great time for us to give feedback. But keeping these hacks in mind will make it easier for us to do that, ensuring that we're not ruffling the feathers or rubbing people on the wrong side. Yeah. Okay, offering workaround. Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, so and WO then TO. Workaround then turnaround. Thanks, Abhishek. That's how millennials talk. We've got to get used to this, right? This is our generation. Okay, offer workarounds, replace with empathy. Fantastic. Thank you so much. I think you're picking up all 3 points, and if I were you, I would do just that. Now, very quickly, what can we do to ask feedback from our directs? This is when you are the boss. This is when you are holding an authority figure or authoritative position, and you truly want to get some good quality feedback. You are telling your people you're open to it, but people are reluctant in giving you feedback because they probably think there are certain consequences to it if they're too candid, or they might just be too in the face. So 3 things to make it easier for people to feel comfortable giving you feedback is to first make it a normal process. Don't bring up feedbacks in a random fashion, like suddenly, ad hoc. One off, morning you wake up and you think that I should be more open. I should allow a 2-way communication between me and my team. So this morning, I'm going to add feedback to my agenda. It doesn't work like that. We need to make it normal, which means we need to set a process. So every week we will spend 10 minutes on feedback, or every month when we have these monthly review meetings, I'm going to spend 5-10 minutes on your feedback on my leadership. And these are the specific areas in which I would request you to share your feedback. When it becomes normal, when people know this is a normal thing, it's a monthly thing, they slowly start to open up. And you will realize that every month the quality of that feedback starts getting better and better. The second way is to set the tone, which means planting someone in the room if possible to share a good feedback. By good feedback, I don't mean positive feedback, but a good quality feedback, something that's meaningful, which gives you a clear action point, something to work upon, right? So you can plant that by encouraging somebody you have a better equation with, to say that, I'm going to open this up, as we always do in every review, every monthly review. Why don't you share your feedback on me in that meeting? And that will encourage others to do the same. That's one way of doing this. The second way of doing that is to share with people some recent feedback you've received from someone else outside the room. That I was speaking to Ashok, and I had encouraged him to share feedback, and his feedback for me was that I could do better with my approval turnaround time. I think I'm taking too long, and I need to look at that. Or maybe some part of it can be delegated. It doesn't even have to be approved by me, and I totally take that up. And I'm working on it. Is there any other feedback that you would like to share? So when you put out an example of a feedback that you're getting, people realize that, oh, it's not all goody stuff that we have to share. I can really come to the point. I can really highlight areas which are becoming a showstopper or a bottleneck for us. And the third way is to adopt a coach by allowing people to create a solution-centric conversation. And you can do that by opening up that conversation yourself. right? So you could start by saying that I have identified this weakness in me, and this is how I'm addressing it. Is there anything else that you see about the way I'm leading this team or this project that should be brought to my notice or that I need to work upon, so that together we can achieve more? So that is another way of warming people up to sharing some meaningful feedback. So which one of these are you going to pick up is what I want to know in the chat box. When you are encouraging people to be honest with you, just by saying, please be honest, I am open, doesn't do the trick, because people are still not comfortable. And by the way, that's also a sign of how much they trust us. What is their level of trust in you? That will reflect in the way they open up to you. But sometimes it needs a little warming up, and these hacks can be really handy in that sense. So adopt a coach approach for Abhishek. Fantastic. What about the rest? Give me some more takeaways. Make it normal. Make it normal. That's very, very important to do. Make it a part of your structure. Make it a part of your agenda. Let it become an expectation. Let people come prepared for it. Let them be mentally ready to give feedback. Wonderful. Now is the time for some self-reflection. We're going to spend the next 15 minutes understanding how to make feedback work. Now that we've got feedback, we've got the right way to ask for feedback, we've got the right way to give feedback, what do we do with this feedback? Beyond just getting this report, accepting, rejecting, and questioning what we've got on the table, is there anything else you can do? In fact, what we do with the feedback after this point is what makes feedback work for us. And here comes that 5-step process I want you to follow from here on to do justice to this effort you are putting in to ask for feedback and respect the time and effort other people are putting in to give you feedback. Are you ready to say bring it on? BIO, bring it on in the chat box if you're ready to know this 5-step process. Ready? Ready, guys? BIO, bring it on. Only if you insist, let me bring it on. Let me share with you 5 steps, and they have to be followed in this sequence. So the first step is you've got this report on the table, and now you are going to reflect upon the data that you have received with a coach or with somebody who is your true well-wisher. And by well-wisher, I mean someone who's at your level, who understands your professional background if this is a professional feedback, or who understands your personal situation if this is a personal feedback. Somebody who you will allow to question you. Somebody who you will allow to bring in honesty in the statements that they make when they look at this data. And you will have to allow that level of honesty and intervention. So why? Coach is this person who comes without judgment. They are professionals. They know how to drop judgments, how to filter judgments from views and opinions, and how to filter out opinions from concerns. So there are very clear demarcations between all these words and emotions or actions behind them. So you've got to have a coach sitting next to you when you're going through this data. And after that, you answer these questions. The first question is, what exactly did the feedback report tell you? What did this tell you? And you need to answer that, right? So you've got to write an answer to this question. What reactions and judgments do you have around the data? This is where you will candidly share, my first reaction is, it's not me. Or my first reaction is, oh God, do people still feel that way? I've worked upon it for so long and it is still in my feedback. Or it could be something else. Or it could be, yeah, I mean, yes, I know, I am working on this. Or yes, I've known this for a long time. Or no, I did not see this coming. This was a total blind spot. Right? So what was your reaction? What are your judgments on this data that you've received as feedback? How open are you to accepting data as evidence of others' experience with you? This is where you've got to openly, honestly assess your level of acceptance to what is coming your way as feedback. And if you have a coach sitting next to you for this exercise, which is a great thing to do, you need to share with your coach very candidly that I am feeling resistance. I am feeling some level of denial. I'm not able to connect with this part of the feedback. You've got to have that open dialogue with your coach. The next question to answer is, what assumptions are you making that drives your behavior? And are these assumptions accurate? So an assumption could be that, oh yeah, I know it must be from this guy who doesn't like me, and he got this opportunity to criticize, so he's just put this in. I know it is this person's feedback only. I can guarantee you. There are no names to this data, but I can tell you it's come from this person. So you're assuming something about what you're receiving as data. It could be many other assumptions that are attached to what we see as data. The next question is, what impact are you having on others? When you look at this data together, how do you want to answer this question? What is the impact that you're having on people? How does that compare to the impact that you want to have on people? So maybe all of this put together is making you feel that, you've always thought that you're very open and approachable, but a large part of this data is saying the contrary. A large part of this data seems to, tell you that people are reluctant in sharing the real issues with you. Right? So how aligned is this data with what you were expecting in terms of the impact you want to create? That is a very important question to answer as the first step. So we are only still just analyzing this, okay? You're looking at the report and you're not just picking up and rejecting, you are reflecting upon this with absolute honesty and openness along with a partner. Please don't do this exercise alone. It will not give you the results that it will if you have a coach next to you or a partner you can trust. So that's the first step to follow. After you are done with this self-reflection is when you will start creating a development plan. If you don't have an action upon a realization, then it is just a thought. And I always say this. You can realize a lot of things. You can agree or disagree with a lot of things, but until you put that into action, it is just another thought. And there are randomly about 10,000 plus thoughts that cross our mind single day. So this entire exercise that you did on feedback collection, reaching out to the right people, asking the right questions, being specific, this and that, is all gone in vain if you have not brought it together, reflected upon it, and created a development plan basis that. So what are the questions to look at when you're creating a plan such as that? So the first question that I want you to consider is summarizing the important part of this feedback. Whatever is the important aspect of this feedback, both positive and negative, how would you like to summarize the feedback? The second is to include any question you have about the data. Not in a defensive manner, but any question to further understand, go deeper into something that's being told to you. For example, there could be a feedback related to communication skills. Very common feedback that we receive. Your communication skills are good, but they could be better. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean I'm not a good listener? Because that's also a communication skill. Does that mean I'm not able to articulate my thoughts really well? I say something else, but I mean something else. Is that what it means? Does it mean I don't express myself enough? What does that mean? If I want to understand the feedback better, that's the kind of question I want to park aside at this point when I'm developing a plan. I want to know this response better, understand this better. So include those questions and not questions which are defensive in nature, that this is not me. I want to know what made you think this about me. I think I'm very trustworthy. What made you say that I cannot be trusted? That's not the right question because we are defending ourselves in that place. The next question you may want to consider is articulating the steps you will take to better leverage on or increase the strengths that you have. What will be your plan, action plan to work upon the strengths and make that stronger? And what will be your action plan to mitigate or correct the weaknesses that are coming out from this data, from the feedback you've collected? And lastly, identify the help you need to take those steps and improve. What support would you require? Do you need training somewhere? Do you need coaching somewhere? Do you need to learn at your own pace and sign up for some online course? Or do you need to request the organization to rope you in the next time there is a training program or workshop happening on this particular topic or skill? Or do you want to pick up a book well recommended which you can stay with and create some action plan using the learnings from that book, and not just read that book over weekends because you love reading? You're picking that book as a part of your action plan. That is different than just reading. When you are using a book to develop yourself, you've got to make that into a workbook. What does that mean? That means if the book has 10 chapters and those 10 chapters are 10 areas that require your attention, each area will have an action plan associated with it, which you will create. And you will commit to that, and until you bring that into action, you're not moving to the next point. It's not a story book. It's a book that is being used to develop an action plan for your growth. So this is how you're going to utilize the book if that's the resource that you have thought of to work upon the areas of weaknesses or concerns that are coming up in the feedback. So I'm going to take a pause here and check with you in the room which one of these two steps you think is opening up something new for you, or what about the development plan you would like to bring in from here on. You get the feedback. Does the feedback just rest on your table forever and you look at it whenever you get time or never again? Or are you going to now look at this, create a development plan? And if you are planning to create that action plan for yourself, what will be your approach? So you could unmute and share, or share in the chat box. How do you intend to draft this development plan for yourself? Let me see, what is the action plan we are going back with from the session? I'm waiting for you to share in the chat box, or you could also unmute and share. Which one of these 4 steps of developing plan comes really handy, that you will consciously bake this into your development plan for being a better leader? Which one of these would you like to do? Or in fact, being a better human, if you really want to work upon yourself as a person, which one of these is going to be more useful for you? Let's have some sharings in the chat box, guys. Tell me, what are you going to take away? Which one of these 4 pointers are you going to take away to develop your plan? Wow, there's a lot of deep thinking going on there, but it's a very, very important step. So if you're taking some time to think, it's absolutely all right. It's a very important step of the entire process. So we see some comments here saying, identify the help you need to take steps and improve. Very important. You've got to identify, now that you know this is the area I need to work upon, how am I going to do it? What are the resources? What is my step forward? Summarize the most important feedback, positive and negative both. Absolutely right, Nikhil. Articulate the steps very clearly, put them out in order, and commit to them. Commit to them, Dhiren, with action plan as well as deadlines, right? By when am I going to work upon this? Identify help needed to and take steps to improve. Perfect. Fantastic. Thanks so much. With that, let's move to the third and the most important part of making feedback work for you. This step is what I call as magic, because this is the step that leverages upon our understanding of human psychology. And we call this step as feed forward. Now, what is feedback? Feedback is you've done something in the past and you are taking people's view on how good or bad it was, right? You've gone back and you're taking a feed on that, on how well it went or how good you were. Feed forward is when you are encouraging people to share a feed on what you are planning to do going forward. Now, what does that mean? That means sharing with people that you have made a note of the feedback they shared. Thanking the feedback providers individually, one-on-one, and not taking their time and effort for granted. Not just that, when people give feedback and they don't hear anything back from you, they pretty much know that it's been thrown in the bins, right? It's been ignored, or it was probably not heard or fell on deaf ears, and just another exercise that happens in this organization. Nothing changes, nothing will change. This person will forever be the way he or she is, and my feedback or the whole session is a waste of time. But when you reach out to this person and individually thank them for their effort, they appreciate your hunger to grow and learn from the effort that they have put in. After you thank them, you've got to summarize what you've heard in the feedback. More often than not, you would not know who said what, which is the right way to collect feedback. By the way, it's not important to know who said what, because then we get stuck in the who, right? We've got to have that as a cumulative feedback and say, all right, so this is the whole picture. And I want to share this with my feedback provider to say, you know what, this is what the summary looks like. And I really want to thank you for your contribution. I don't know what you've said, but I know that you've added value to this feedback and I'm very grateful to you. We do this feed forward session every single time in our personal coaching sessions. When I take executive coaching for individuals and leaders, we do feed forward every single time. We've got to reach out to 10 people who matter the most. We take them through the entire feedback exercise and then we do a feed forward. So I would want to encourage you to initiate a feed forward for yourself. Thank the people who've given the feedback and summarize the entire feedback, helping them to understand that you've taken the whole picture in and you are thankful for their contribution without knowing exactly what they've said. The third thing is to request additional input and specific examples if they are ready to share. That could you throw some more light on this part of the feedback that I received might not have come from you, but when you hear this about me, what would you like to say? Is there something you want to add to this? Is there some more detail or insight that I can get on this part of the feedback, which might not have come from you, but just for me to understand this better? The next thing is to share the steps you plan to take to improve. This is the part of human psychology that I'm talking about. When you tell people that you're working on yourself, you create a certain level of hope and expectation in their mind, which allows them to give you some time to come up on the learning curve and not expect a turnaround or a transformation almost overnight. Or the other extreme of it is to totally give up and expect nothing at all from you. So if I have seen you in a certain light or I have a certain judgment of who you are, in my mind, I'm stuck with that judgment without allowing you any benefit of doubt, thinking that you might just be working on that particular weakness. So for example, if I think that you are somebody who always comes late, even when you're coming on time for meetings, I am discounting that because in my mind, I'm not able to register this one time when you are there on time, when you weren't late. And the next time you're late again, it validates the point of view I had on you always. Okay, I knew you to be this person who's always late, and here you go again, you're late again. And that confirms my belief in you. It's also called as confirmation bias. It's one of the biases that cloud our decision making and our understanding of people. I need a little confirmation here. If you can hear me in the chat box, just say yes, please, because there's a little power fluctuation at my end. Give me a yes in the chat box. Fantastic. Great. Thank you. All right. So we need to let people know what is the plan that you have and you're committing to work upon. And lastly, ask for any help that you need from them. For example, if I behave like this again, could you please point that out? If I'm late for the meeting again, could you please let me know later? If I again use filters when I'm talking that I don't want to use because I'm trying to bring in more clarity in my speech, can you please highlight next time I use a filler like, right, is it, or whatever other fillers that I may have in the way I speak. So when you are asking for that help from people, people are more than willing to help you in that manner for as long as they see that hunger and openness in you to work upon yourself. So please don't be scared and worry about sharing your action plan. Don't think that people are going to hold a gun on your head and say, you said you will not be late. Now you don't have the right to be late ever again. That will not happen. What will happen instead is that they will notice the changes you're making even more than they would have otherwise. They will challenge their own judgment of you. They will give you a benefit of doubt. They will notice small little improvements that you're trying to make in different situations. So feed forward is what allows you to get the support from people, to be appreciated and acknowledged for the effort that you're making in this action plan. Otherwise, you're pretty much alone in this entire process, and you are challenging people's fixed mindset and belief about you, and that's very hard to break, guys. It's very hard for people to drop their judgments. Look at your own list of judgments that you have for people. You have a certain list in your mind for your spouse, for your direct reports, for your bosses, for people who work with you, that he is like this and she is like that, and he is not good enough here and she is not good enough there. And you stick with that without realizing that people are evolving, and people evolve every single day, even subconsciously. Even if they don't have a conscious learning plan behind this, they are trying to be better than they were yesterday out of sheer experiences of life. Who you are today is not who you were 5 years back, 10 years back. But if you were to be this friend of yours from 10 years back, and that person views you from the same lens, you will not be able to break out of that image until that person wants to break out of those lenses and give you a fair chance to see you in the light that you enjoy today, given that in the last 10 years you worked upon yourself. So I want to take a pause here and see how many of you are ready to commit to a feed forward as a part of your action plan on making feedback work. If you are committing to include feed forward as a process, which is not easy, it is not easy. It comes with an element of fear because you're feeling exposed, right? You're letting people know what your plan is, and now you're accountable. It was very easy all this while because you were in your mind thinking, I'm going to work on this, I'm going to work on that, I'll do this, I'll do that. Nobody knows your plans, you're not committed, there is no accountability. But now you have declared it. You've declared it to people who matter. They matter because they took time to give you that feedback. So now you're accountable to them, and it's not easy. How many of us are ready to take this difficult step forward? Because this is a make or break in feedback. When you want feedback to work for you, you've got to include feed forward. So let's see. Okay, you're seeing a blurred image, maybe because of the bandwidth fluctuation. Abhishek, we'll try and reconnect in a bit and see if that works. But if I could meanwhile get some views and some comments from you guys on how committed are you with the feed forward. So if you want to commit, and if you're ready, and if you have the courage to take the step forward, that's when you truly want feedback to work for you. That's when you're truly open to feedback. So if you're ready to say I commit, or say ready. Say ready in the chat box if you're ready to take the step forward. Come on, how many of us are ready to go all this while, all to the step of creating a feed forward? Going that far to make sure that I act upon what I need to act upon. People have bothered to give me a certain feedback, and now it's my responsibility to create certain level of accountability and work on this. Ready? Ready? A lot of us in the room are ready. I'm waiting for others to be ready. Come on. Who else needs to be ready? Shambhavi, Deepak, come on, give me a ready. Let's go all the way and make feedback work for us. Ready, ready, ready. All right, great. I am going to just try changing the network. Allow me a minute to do that. That might just make the bandwidth stronger. Just give me a second, please. Okay, please let me know if you can see the screen better this time. Is it visible? Is it clearer now? Can I get some confirmation in the chat box? Yes, guys, can you see the screen? Give me a yes in the chat box if you can. Give me a no if you can't. We'll try and fix it. No, okay. Okay, so I am going to just try changing the network again. Please allow me a minute. All right, am I audible? Yes? Okay, great. So we're gonna try sharing the screen again and see if it works. Is it any better? Yes? No? Okay. Then we've got to live with it. I will read out every bit of what is written here, and I promise to share this mind map with you after the session. Silhouette leaders are already connected on WhatsApp with me. If you are not connected on WhatsApp with me, please share your number here in the chat box and I'll make a note of it after the session. Or you could write to me on yukti@sbyacademy.in and I will make sure I share this mind map with you. You can drop me a mail please on yukti@sbyacademy.in. All right, so we've taken 3 steps after collecting the feedback from people. We've reflected upon it with a coach, we have drafted a development plan, and we have taken the feed forward step by declaring what our plan is and committing to it with accountability. Now, what is the 4th step? Now is the time to act upon what we are committing to do. We have got to make this change happen, and whatever change you want to make, following the steps in your plan is the key to improving. When you are committing to those changes, when you are bringing it into an action, is when you will see improvement happening for you. So that's the next step. You've done the feed forward, you've declared what your intent is, what your plan is. Now you are acting upon that development plan. And the last step is to evaluate the progress and repeat. What is the frequency of evaluating? At least 3 to 6 months. Don't evaluate every month. You need to have a longer window to see what progress you are making, and please don't wait for a year either. 1 year is too long a window in my view, and 1 month is too short to see any improvement in the areas that you want to make, whether it's leadership or personal life. So what are the things we need to look at when you're evaluating process? You've got to answer these questions. What behaviors are your colleagues seeing you practice compared to when they first shared their feedback? Are they seeing anything different about you? Now here I'm talking about colleagues. It could be your spouse if it's something that you're working on yourself. It could be your close friends. It could be your parents. It could be your boss if it's something to do with your professional space. So what is the change in your behavior that people are noticing now compared to 6 months back when you first received the feedback? What has improved and what hasn't? The third question is, what is the impact of those behaviors now? Are you able to see any improvement in the relationships? Are you able to see higher level of productivity? Are you able to see more growth in your career? Are you able to see scope for better learning? Are you learning much more? Are you learning in a better way? Are you communicating in a better way, which is resulting in something more meaningful, which is getting you closer to how you define success and what you define success to be? And lastly, what else is needed for you to do? What else would you like to add to your development plan now that you've worked upon it for 6 months? When you do this progress analysis, when you are evaluating the progress you've made, you go back to the first step of reflecting upon the data that you are collecting in terms of evidence for that progress and sharing it with your coach once again. So feedback is not a one-time process. It's a continuous process and it's a cyclic process. When you are collecting information, when you're collecting data, it is only the starting point of the entire feedback process. What is important is for us to follow these 5 steps after that. So a quick recap of what these 5 steps are. Number 1, reflect upon the data that you've got as feedback from people with a coach or a trusted partner. Number 2, draft a development plan very clearly, articulating the steps, identifying the areas you need to improve upon and how you're going to do it. Put deadlines to it if you can. Number 3, create a feed forward by going back to your feedback providers, thanking them for it, letting them know that their contribution matters and you value it, sharing with them what you're going to do, what is your action plan basis that feedback. And 4th step is to act upon those plans that you have put together and shared with your feedback providers. And lastly, evaluate the progress that you are making every 6 months or 3 months or 9 months and go back to the first step, which is to reflect upon that progress. This 5-step process is what makes feedback work for you. Otherwise, it is just another exercise that you indulge in to feel good or confirm to people how open you are, how approachable you are as a leader without truly being so. So I'm going to take a pause and check with you all in the room what's going on. What are you taking away from this session? What has opened up for you? What was useful for you from this 5-step process? You could unmute and share or put it in the chat box. Deepak, would love to know your views. Thank you for keeping your video on. It's very encouraging to see someone when you're in a session. Another speaker such as you would know. So what are you taking away, Deepak?
Actually, for 1 hour, this is really, really heavy. I mean, I am part of programs where feedback is given. I give feedback. I also take feedback. And frankly, I mean, I don't know because I wasn't there in the last previous session. I don't know how much was taken over there. But my personal feedback is that this was really, really heavy for a 1 hour session. This could probably be a 1-day session if it was in the offline world, I think.
Yes. Absolutely, you're right. So this is actually a 1-day session because you need to break this into so many activities, right? You've got to indulge in more conversations. You've got to bring in examples from life where we are facing these real challenges. But in a webinar, I want to leave you hungry. I want to give you a little feeling of what is the depth of a topic such as feedback. And then we can indulge in a longer session and really get the taste of it together. Right, when we go deeper into it. In fact, now that you talked about feedback on the session, I'm sharing this link in the chat box, and it would mean a lot if you could spend 2 minutes on this and share your feedback on this feedback session today. The link is there in the chat box. So please spend 2 minutes after the session. I would love to know how was this webinar for you. But I'm in absolute agreement, Deepak. It is heavy because there's a lot of work to be done, which is now left at your end. But if we could create another arrangement of working on this together, a day is less to do this in the right way. Thank you. What are the takeaways? Guys, please share it in the chat box if you like. Main takeaway for me is that feedback needs to be institutionalized with a routine. Nikhil, absolutely, you're so bang on. It is not a random ad hoc exercise. It needs to be done in a very structured manner. It needs to be done in a way that helps people to be prepared to share meaningful, valuable inputs and not just randomly say what's on top of their mind. Okay, I'm open to any questions if you may have, or we could conclude this session. And by the end of this, you will receive an email from me with the mind map if I have your email address. If I don't, please share it in the chat box right now. Or you could write to me at yukti@sbyacademy.in. So with that, we conclude today's session on the art of feedback. Thank you so much once again for your very, very patient listening and participation. I wait to see you once again next week with another insight on leadership and see how we can make that meaningful and use it to help ourselves in this journey of being a great leader. Thank you. Please take care of yourself. Have a great evening ahead and a fantastic week to follow. Thank you.